So it's Jem here, and I've just had a client session, and there was a lot of discussion around premature ejaculation, which is a word that is often used, premature ejaculation, and I get a lot of inquiries and phone calls about this from men. And first of all, I don't ever really use the word premature because that suggests that there is a correct amount of time to wait before ejaculation occurs, and there isn't actually. You can ejaculate whenever you want. How radical is that? But as long as there is pleasure, is my theory. You know, you may ejaculate quicker than you'd like, but have you had pleasure? Would you like more pleasure? Then okay, we can work with that and open up your range so that you have more choice around when you ejaculate, okay? Because sometimes you're gonna ejaculate quicker than other times, and that's okay. But if you're constantly finding yourself frustrated because you're not getting enough pleasure in your life because you are ejaculating quicker than you would like, so I might call that ejaculation dissatisfaction or rapid ejaculation, then yeah, that's something you can work with. And what I suggest to clients is I talk about the pleasure scale. And for those of you who have been to my talks or my workshops, you've probably heard me talk about this. The pleasure scale is 0 to 10, for example. So 0 is neutral, when my body is just neutral, and 10 is when we have the peak orgasmic experience. So personally, I don't ever think about striving to get anywhere when it comes to sex and bodies and arousal and pleasure. I'm not ever trying to get to 10, but 10 for this scale is when we have our peak orgasm. And just to be clear, peak orgasms for women are usually attached to clitoris stimulation and clitoris orgasms, and for men, they're the ones that usually come with ejaculation, okay? You have lots of other types of orgasms, which I wouldn't even put on that pleasure scale. They're like 11 or 12 or somewhere else, but we're talking about ejaculation or peak orgasms at the moment. And the pleasure scale is where you track in your body your kind of level of arousal. And what often happens is we're so busy trying to get to the 8s and the 9s and the 10s of arousal, whether that's on our own or with a partner, that we're not taking any notice of the lower end of the scale where we can find arousal and pleasure. So if I just breathe and tune into my body now, I'm not neutral, I'm not at 0, I'm at a 1 because I'm quite warm and I've just done some light yoga, so my body's a little bit alive. So yeah, I'm at a 1 about now. And actually, if I was to add some nice touch, yeah, that's a 2 experience actually, just allowing some soft touch. And you can do this for yourself. Take a breath. Where am I right now? Am I neutral? Am I 0? Am I in pain? Where you'd be in minus, you know, but okay, where am I right now? And I know that I'm warm and that actually I'm enjoying just the touch of my skin. So I'm at 1, maybe 2. And actually, for me, when it comes down to having sex or lovemaking on my own or with a partner, what I really enjoy is trying to stay in that area of the 4s and the 5s, actually. How can I be in low level arousal or relaxed arousal, as I call it? And that's without trying to get to orgasm. Because I'm not going to get to orgasm if I just stroke my shoulder. Well, I might actually, if I add in a bit of breath and a bit of movement and a bit of something else, but actually, I'm not trying to get there. But if I was to do this for a long time, I'd definitely build up on the pleasure scale and I'd be in pleasure without needing to get to 10. What often happens is not only do we ignore the low level pleasures like the 3s, the 4s, the 5s, but also when we are at the 6 and the 7s and the 8s, for me, 8 is the point of no return. So I like to stay at 7. So instead of arousal shooting up and peaking, I like to stay at 7, 6, 5, 6, 7, so that your pleasure can expand as much as possible. And this is something I teach people, both through my online orgasmic yoga coaching and also through the bodywork sessions and the coaching I do face-to-face. And what we want to do is we want to try and stay in that place where the pleasure expands and can go on for days, guys, absolute days or weeks. And for me, 8, and for most of my clients, 8 is the point of no return. That's the point where you've got to ejaculate or orgasm. I'm sure we all know that place where you just suddenly go, oh, I want it now. That for me is 8, 9, 10. So 8 and 9 and 10 are very close together. Whereas down here, in the 1s and the 2s and the 3s, it can take quite a while to get from 1 to 2 to 3, building up our arousal. When you get to that higher end of the scale, that 8, 9, 10, it can be 8, 9, 10, really very quickly. And that is where men often struggle around ejaculation or coming quicker than they would like, actually. Because what we need to do is we need to find 8 and then take our time and spreading out that time between 8, 9 and 10 in the same way that we do on the lower end of the scale. And how we do this is by breathing and stopping and taking some time and moving our body instead of friction-based touch to try and get there. So for men who are struggling with ejaculating sooner than they would like on a regular basis, what I would say is track your low-level arousal at the lower end of the pleasure scale. See how long you can hang out in 3 and 4 and 5. And when you're at 6, come back down to 5 to 4. And there are some other breathwork videos on my YouTube as well and on my website, which you might find helpful for staying in or building up to low-level pleasure. And this is the same for women as well. Just because we don't obviously ejaculate, we do have peak orgasmic experiences, again, often attached to the clitoris stimulation that I said earlier. But actually, how do we want to expand that? So instead of having the pleasure shooting up, peaking, and then whoosh, dropping off, as it so often does, and then we kind of have a crash. And often that can be when we fall asleep, or when we don't want to be touched anymore. Actually, I've had enough. Or sometimes that can be attached to tears as well for some people. That's generally the crash after the peak orgasm. So if we don't want to experience that, track your arousal, stay in 7, breathe, don't try to get up anywhere near 8 or 9 and 10. I hope that's been helpful. Any questions, drop me an email via my website, www.gemairs.co.uk.